talked about days on market and if the property is priced well. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode from the Deep Creek Collective. Today, Jessie and I are going to be talking about really important questions that you should be asking as a buyer whenever you're seeing property with your agent. Obviously, hopefully that's with one of us from the Deep Creek Collective, but regardless, we're gonna run down 6 different questions that we feel are really imperative to the success of your purchase. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it off. You definitely want to ask, is the property priced well? And specifically, I would be asking for comparable sales in the area that support the asking price. Ask your agent for a suggested offer price and why. It's very important to ask this question because the asking price of a property does not necessarily mean that that's what the property is worth or that that's fair market value. So it's important to know, is the property priced for a fast sale, or are they just kind of stretching it, hoping to get something higher? So make sure you ask for data. That's going to give you the perfect picture for what you need to be offering.
So speaking of if the property is priced well, another thing to consider is how long it's been on the market. Currently, we are looking at about 94 days on market for an average property in Garrett County. A couple things to consider with this are, if a property has been on the market for a significant amount of time, that may be indicative that the price is too high, and you may be able to use that as leverage when making your offer. If it's been on the market for a short period of time, but there seems to be a lot of activity surrounding that property, that may insinuate that you need to get here and look at the property and make an offer.
Very good points. So now that we talked about days on market and if the property is priced well, another thing to ask and consider are there any issues with the home? Now, this is sort of a catch-22 question because really your agent isn't going to know the direct answer to that. What they should tell you is how important it is to rely on a home inspection. Additionally, past the home inspection, there is a 3-page disclosure or a 1-page disclaimer that all property owners must fill out. There are some circumstances where they'll be exempt, but I would say 99% of the time they have to fill out one of those forms. The property disclosure is extremely helpful. It's going to talk about a history of the inner workings of the house, from a functionality perspective, from roof, electrical, plumbing, and more. So it'll at least give you a small picture of their ownership of the house, and they're legally bound to that disclosure. So that you can start there as far as determining if you feel there are any existing issues. And then further, if you decide to make an offer, making sure that you have the proper property inspection contingency in place is super key. So that's the best way to answer that specific question.
In addition to any issues with the home, a great question to ask your agent would be what your average costs are. This could include an HOA fee, which may be snow plowing, lawn care, road maintenance, additional community amenities. Also, you want to be aware of any insurance, taxes, utilities on the property. A great question would be is to ask your agent if they could get a list of averages for the year.
Exactly. And the great thing is, at least in our office at Rayleigh, we have a form that asks them all of these monthly fees. So really in the disclosures, that should also be provided. So great question. So speaking of HOA and amenities, the next question that I would ask is, tell me about the neighborhood. So a couple specifics that I would want to know and I think are important regarding a specific neighborhood or area is amenities. So does this location have additional amenities that are included? That might be a community pool or dock slips, general lake access where you can just swim, kayak, canoe, fish. Maybe it's a tennis court, basketball courts. We have plenty of areas that provide all of the above. And then there are going to be some locations where they don't have anything and it's really just snow removal and road maintenance. I would also ask the question of price ceiling. So it's always been kind of the faux pas that, okay, I shouldn't buy the most expensive house on the block, I should buy the least expensive because it gives you that level of swing if you're gonna make improvements to the property. So I would wanna know, okay, if I'm spending $500,000 in this particular area, are there homes that sell for $800, $900 right around me? Just to give you an idea, if I wanna redo the bathrooms in the kitchen, am I gonna be in a good spot to sell if I wanted to turn around and do that? So talking to your agent about location and where you're priced and compared to other properties in the area, I think is very critical.
That's an excellent point, Nina. Another thing you want to consider, and a great question to ask, is if you want to be in the rental home market, and is this property able to be rented in the area? Most of the properties in this area are able to be rented. However, there are a few select communities that do prohibit rentals, and you're going to want to be aware of what those are before you come to view the property. Another thing to consider is you will have to have a TVRU license with Garrett County, and that is a transient vacation rental unit license. They are going to come and inspect the property and make sure that it is safe and that it is able to be rented. If a property that you're about to look at is already currently on the rental market, make sure you ask your agent for any past rental histories that they can provide for that property. If it's not on the rental market already, then we can definitely reach out for you and get rental projections on it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the $1 million question that you're all waiting for is every buyer always wants to know, why is the seller selling? And really, it's none of your business. No, I'm just kidding. Really, we as agents generally have no idea. So you have to remember agency. We're here to represent you as buyers, so we are your agent. We typically are not privy to any of that information from the seller. We can certainly ask, but just keep in mind that if you were on the flip side, there are many reasons why you're selling. Some of them are personal. Some people are okay putting it out there. Maybe they just took a job elsewhere and they're relocating, but there could also be financial reasons. So even though you really want to know the answer to this question, just realize sometimes we won't be able to answer it. So hopefully this was informative. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode from the Deep Creek Collective. Stay tuned for more. Have a great day.